The way I pick my investments is usually by the ability of the founders, of the CEO, to be super persistent. It starts with they never give up on a meeting with me, even if I'm ignoring them or just didn't see their message. This is one example of how the future will look like. Because when you run a company that is growing very fast, these challenges are going to show up every day and every night. And without hitting the wall, you're probably not going to grow.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we look at persistence. Every company is going through challenges right now. I think if you're trying to grow your business, your challenges maybe are about, revenue growth and how do we scale and still keep up the level of customer service and quality of the products that we're doing and services that we offer. There's all kinds of things that get in our way. Well, how do we overcome those things? Well, persistence. So I do believe that leaders embrace persistence. They're also self-aware. They're aware of where things are getting out of alignment, and they're willing to call themselves on that. They're willing to address those blind spots. And that is a great example and intro into today's conversation with the CEO of Workiz. They were on the Inc. list twice recently, growing fast. But we're talking to their CEO, Didi Azaria. And Didi and I really, talk about how he's evolved as a leader, even recently, and about what that really means. He also talks a number of times about the importance of leading by example and what that really means in relation to persistence. He shares a great story about losing this big client and, kind of what was going on behind the scenes, but how he was able to rally the company and the organization to not only win that client back, but the client's actually spending more money today than they were before. So Didi and I have a great conversation about persistence and about what it means to be self-aware. Hope you enjoy it as much as I do. My job here is to help you create the kind of business where your people are stronger leaders and you are a stronger leader as well. And if you have any questions about how we do this through the executive coaching or leadership development, please let me know. One of the tools that we use in this journey is something I've been using with clients for a long time, but we look at 7 dials of leadership. And we really go into companies and we help them measure where they are so that they know where to focus. Now, I won't prescribe anything to clients until I've gone through this entire holistic view of their leadership. And one of the things that we've been doing recently is offering it to listeners at no cost. So if you actually go to genehammett.com, schedule your call with me and say that you've heard it on the podcast, that you want the leadership effectiveness evaluation, that you can actually get this tool and get insight around your leadership effectiveness across your company. And it is very valuable if you take the time to do it. It's absolutely free. Just go to genehammett.com, schedule your call today, and mention that you heard it on the podcast. Now, here's the interview with Didi. Hey, Didi, how are you?
Hi there. How are you?
I am great. We're going to have a great conversation about persistence and what that really means inside of a growing organization. Speaking of your organization, tell us about Workiz.
Absolutely. Workiz is the field service platform for serving North America. We help field services like HVAC, plumbers, locksmiths to manage their entire back office, from providing them with entire phone system down to scheduling and getting paid in the field or at the office.
Love it. How did you find this industry? Is it something you were always interested in, or did you find it some other way?
It's a funny story. 20 years ago, I was the locksmith in LA. My partners were locksmiths in San Diego, and in between, I was a lousy locksmith, by the way. Went to found and co-founded one of the most successful BI companies in the world, like a huge turn. 13 years later, I met my partners today, which were super successful locksmiths. They sold their business and started to code. Starting like a joke, but all in all, we met, we fell in love, and we created Workiz as the startup it is today.
Perfect. When you think about the business, I don't know how it's changing, but I'm just curious, what do you see for your industry over the next 3 years?
we see a lot of digital transformation. So you would imagine that, I mean, today it's 2023, most businesses will work with digital aids, anything from Google Calendar, I guess this would be the most modest one, and digital payments and so on. Yet many people still today getting only cash, taking notes, forgetting them home, don't get to the clients, using their own private cell phones to run a business. All these things are changing rapidly, and this is good for the business and for the consumers mainly.
Well, I'd love to know more about your business, but today we're going to talk a lot more about your perspective on leadership and your people. You've got 120 people. It's not easy to lead a team that big. What are some of the challenges you've had to face in that journey?
So we have multiple challenges in that sense. I mean, we're a multinational company. So the headquarters is in San Diego, and then we have another team elsewhere in Central America, and a development team, quite big one in Tel Aviv, Israel. So it's not just a big team, it's also a multicultural team, and also a huge time difference, which is definitely a challenge. It all starts and ends, I guess, with communication and good communication skills. It's all about the expectations from each other at the team level, I guess, at the regional level. I will give you one example. It will sound strange, but I mean, I'm not a big fan of sending emails over the weekend. However, Sunday is a working day for Israel and not for the US. So my employees challenged me and said, we're not allowed to send emails on Sundays. And my answer was very clear in that sense. I mean, you are allowed to send emails on Sundays, but use the send later, because the other side of the ocean would not appreciate you sending them emails over the weekend, and they don't understand that it's not a working day. This is one of many, many examples and challenges that you face running a big company, but a multinational company too.
I'm kind of curious, when you have multi-time zones, are you guys embracing asynchronous work in a way that others could learn from?
As much as possible. I mean, it started with a simple WhatsApp group, which of course evolved into a Slack. I'm a big fan of asynchronic work. I don't think we need to meet every time. However, some things cannot be done over, just email or text messaging. To begin with, every new person in the company will have an onboarding, including a clear statement on when to use which platform. And this is in order to avoid what we call a 20 hours workday, because 6 p.m. in Israel is 8 a.m. in San Diego. That's super challenging. And we have like simple rules on when we should do meetings, when we shouldn't do meetings, when it's an emergency, and you should use a phone, which is very rare in our case. And in most cases, you should use email, simple email, in order to create tasks. Slack is only for simple Q&A, not for tasking anybody on anything. This is immediately goes into trash in my case. So we set ground rules, and in general, the ground rules are part of less meetings and more communication to get into a conclusion without a meeting. Of course, we're not eliminating meetings altogether. We have one-on-ones, and we do have monthly company meetings, but again, bare minimum due to the time difference.
Now, Didi has been talking about communication, and I want to say this very clearly. When you are a leader of a company and you believe that leading by example is important, then you want to make sure you communicate in a way that can't be misunderstood. Now, we call this explicit communication. I've learned this through my leadership training and all of the things I've done to put together, but also walking through a lot of the issues that our clients have about they're not setting expectations clear enough. They're not truly communicating. And I want you to think about what explicit communication is, speaking in a way that can't be misunderstood, and be real with yourself about how you can evolve or how you can hold people accountable to more clear or explicit communication. It's part of the process of growing and evolving. It's what I'm here to do. So just wanted to highlight that for you. Thanks for listening in. Now back to Didi. I know this wasn't part of our originally planned, conversation about your people and leadership, which we certainly are going to dive into, what's going on when you have a, organization that must be persistent. I would imagine that every organization, and you're facing a lot of challenges, persistence is a big part of it. Why is persistence such an important piece to your culture?
I'll take it from a different angle. In my private life, I'm an investor. I'm investing in dozens of companies, and the way I pick my investments is usually by the ability of the founders, of the CEO, to be super persistent. It starts with they never give up on a meeting with me, even if I'm ignoring them or just didn't see their message. This is one example of how the future will look like. Because when you run a company that is growing very fast, these challenges are going to show up every day and every night. And without hitting the wall, you're probably not going to grow. We talked about it before, previously to the podcast, but without going through the challenge, you will never grow. You will never grow. I love persistency because it shows strength. It shows that people will not give up when it's going to get tough. And believe it or not, it's never getting any easier. Every step of the company is more challenging. And most people are not prepared for that. But if they have this persistency within their DNA, they're going to get through.
I don't know where it is, because I know you're not US based traditionally. I know you said you worked in LA and California and whatnot, but you have this multicultural understanding of the world. Do you believe in putting a lot of emphasis on like company core values? And if so, is persistence one of those values?
Absolutely. We would call it, I guess, never give up. That would be the slogan.
Okay.
But never give up is a thing that is a great pillar of ours. I can share a story. We lost a big client. Didn't lose it. We actually just onboarded them, and then they figured out that we don't have some kind of a feature, which was not a great situation, because it was one of our biggest clients ever. I overheard it. I even didn't know that we are about to lose him, or we lost him. And it happened in the company meeting. One of the employees, we have this kind of slide deck, that one of the slides is glorious failures. And I'm a big fan of sharing them. And this guy, which I appreciate a lot, just said, well, we tried to onboard them. They didn't find it a good fit, and we lost them. And we did everything. And I'm like, I'm hearing it. I have a very calm face, but I'm burning inside. Right at the end, I said, I'm calling my management. I said, did we lose this crazy deal? No way. And they looked into it. Yes, we lost it. Now, usually you would grieve, I guess. Okay, damn, let's move on. That's not the attitude that I like to present to my employees. The attitude of never give up is to understand with the customer what was the challenge. Are they willing to give us a second chance? And if needed, to get a phone call from the CEO with putting my reputation in front of them and telling them, we're going to make it happen. 3 months, 4 months later, guess what? They're back and they're paying us more than before. Now I can share with the company that the glorious failure became even a greater success. That's the attitude.
I share with you one of my biggest failures in life, where I lost $3 million. I lost my business and lost my sense of confidence. And this is before I started the coaching business, and certainly before the podcast. But I look back at that as one of the biggest failures in my life, but one of the biggest successes as well, because it put me on a different path. When you share this story, how are you able to use that to really rally people together around this concept of never give up?
I'm basically, again, I'm trying to show them that there is no wall tall enough or thick enough for them to look at it as a wall. I'm trying to lead by example and to show them, this was one example of many, that a problem is an opportunity. A challenge is, and there are many cliches here, right? But when you take the cliche and you put it on a real life example, it becomes real for them. And then the next challenge is easier, because they say, okay, this is not a wall. The wall is only in my mind. And taking these kind of examples and sharing them, glorious failures or great success, on a monthly basis, and promoting a culture where a failure, basically I hit a wall and the wall didn't break, is something to celebrate in some way because you tried. Make them believe that they need to try over and over again until the wall will break. Again, it doesn't mean that you need to, I don't know, kill the company for the sake of hitting the wall. It's not that. But it's not being afraid of hitting the wall, not being afraid of looking at it as a piece of paper. It just looks like a wall.
Now, Didi's mentioned a few times about leading by example. I like to highlight these moments because I've done over 500 interviews with people like Didi, CEOs of fast growth companies. And this is one of the patterns at which they typically believe that everything is leading by example. I've got to show the way. I've got to demonstrate being strong, or I got to demonstrate being persistent, or I got to demonstrate listening better. And some people don't get it, I will say, but for the most part, it's a pattern that is consistently recognized with the leaders of fast growth companies, that they're willing to say leading by example is important, and they're willing to actually do it. And that means everything across the organization. So I put this out there to you. Are you setting the example for your team in all areas? Are you addressing the tough conversations? Are you being persistent? Are you being calm in the face of frustration? Are you being patient when you need to be? Are you truly proactive? All of these things are examples of things I work with clients in just in the last couple of weeks. And I know that a lot of the people listening in are struggling with these things too. So if I can help you in any way, make sure you let me know. Back to Didi. I'm curious about the people that you surround yourself with. It's one thing for you to have this never give up attitude and, see persistence as part of your DNA. Are you hiring for that as you bring on new people to the team, or are you developing it inside them in some interesting way?
I'm smiling because there's a lot going on the last, I guess, since COVID. There are many, many changes in every company in the world. People are discovering themselves as, I don't know, craftsmen instead of programmers or whatever. So you face a lot of these challenges. And again, I'm smiling because many of my management team members right now are new. I'm a big fan of hiring from within, basically promoting from within. But I'm also a big fan of surrounding myself with optimism. And the never give up attitude is part of being an optimistic. If you're a pessimistic person, you would say, oh, this will never work. So my way of winning is I'm looking into two things mainly. First, criticism is a good thing. And if you cannot criticize me, you better not work with me. The only way for me to get better is you telling me that I'm doing wrong and being very transparent about it. And secondly, don't tell me it's impossible. Tell me what is possible, or what do you need to make it work. These two things are crucial when I hire or promote new VPs into my management.
I love these concepts. And, some people may be listening in saying they're cliches. I don't think so. I think that when you understand with clarity the things that drive you, that you really are attracted to, and you want to work with people like that, that like criticism's a good thing. A lot of people, avoid conflict. I told you about the book that we're writing about tough conversations. Did you learn this from somewhere in your early ages of working for someone else, or is this something that is just natural for you?
I'm the CEO of Workiz for the past 5 years. I wasn't like that, I guess, in the first 3 years.
Okay.
I learned it from losing some of my best managers, not listening to them. That was one tough, I guess, event. And every time that somebody leaves, or they quit, or I'm asking them to leave, I'm reflecting on that. I will give them a call and try to understand what was wrong, and try to get an honest opinion. And I'm trying to learn from each of these interactions. At some point, I realized that I'm not clear enough with them, because I'm not that kind of a guy who's going to be mad on his employees. And it's not being mad. I'm not talking about being mad at somebody, but it's exactly what you said. It's being able to criticize, being able to tell them you did wrong, and these are my expectations from you. This is something that I didn't do in the early days, and I only realized that after losing some of my best people, and I had to change.
My son is at a summer program right now, and he's 16. and he's texting us because he doesn't like to call. I don't know. Maybe that's all kids these days. But we asked him how the program was going. And he said these words. He goes, "It's very introspective." Now, I will say that my son's pretty smart, but I know at the age of 16, I didn't know what that word was. I didn't know how it was used and what it really meant. And here it is. He's going through this program that's, introspective. It's about leadership. He wants to be an entrepreneur, I guess, like his mom and dad. But that's what you're talking about is this sense of self-awareness that you had to evolve. And this has happened over just the last couple of years. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm an entrepreneur for the last 20 years.
Realizing that you're not a good listener is something a lot of people aren't willing to say to themselves. Was there something that happened, or was it just a kind of a series of these, losing these good managers that was going on? You're like, okay, I got to get ahead of this thing because this isn't the way to build the kind of business I want and the team I want. How would you describe the way that affected you?
It's like losing somebody, right? Like somebody died. You're not ignoring it, but basically you try to avoid any kind of confrontation, even with yourself. It didn't happen. He might come back, and then you grieve, and then you a little bit angry about them, and then about yourself. When it happens once or twice, at some point you need to realize what is the source of the problem. And you can keep blaming everybody else, but if you're not trying to fix the problem, usually the source is you, is your perception of the situation, is how you manage them, how you manage, in our case, the expectations from day one, and don't let them do whatever they want and then question them about that, made me realize that I need to be very clear about my expectations. Some people will call it 30, 60, 90 days plan. I like to call it, okay, what does success looks like by the end of the year? If we're not aligned, we better be aligned right now. Otherwise, one of us is not going to be here. And it's stop being feeling sorry for yourself. I mean, it's not about me, right? It's about the company's success. And if I'm sorry, I feel sorry about myself, I'm basically not trying to get better for the company. I'm not evolving. These two things are crucial for that sense. I'm not trying to be too apologetic today. So if I have new managers, this is what I'm expecting. And the first issue that rises is going to have a conversation. We're going to have a confrontation. It's not going to be a bad, like a loud one, but it's going to be a clear conversation about my expectations and the result that they need to provide. Once you do that, you have less chances of misconceptions or different perceptions 3 months, 4 months into the future.
Well, I appreciate you allowing us to explore your shifts in leadership and the perspectives that have changed that allow you to build the company that you have. I really appreciate you being here, Didi.
Thank you very much. It's been fun.
Wow, what a great interview. I love the part where he gets really real about being self-aware and about really looking at his willingness to communicate better, his willingness to set expectations, his willingness to listen better. Now, I think these are really important, so I'm highlighting them because it really takes someone who is willing to evolve and grow that can reflect back on those things. And I think that all of us should be able to look back a year or 2 years and say, you know what, this was a big moment for me where things really changed. And now I see things differently and I'm better because of it. Now, if you don't have those things in your journey, then you're probably not doing a lot of the internal work that it takes to grow and evolve. I know that me and my clients, and we're all, evolving constantly because that's what it takes to create the kind of companies and the teams that we want. So I remind you, if there's any way that we can serve you through leadership coaching, through executive coaching, through leadership development, I'd love to hear about your business, about what's going on, and help you figure out what's next. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule a call. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.